A federal judge just released a list of 96 court orders that ICE violated in January alone. And this isn't some activist judge you can dismiss. He was appointed by George W. Bush. He clerked for Antonin Scalia twice. And he just said that ICE has likely violated more court orders in January 2026 than some federal agencies have violated in their entire existence. He attached the receipts, 96 violations, 74 separate cases, all documented, all in 1 month. If you're new here, I'm Jordan Vale, and we're building a community of people who refuse to stand by while democracy is under attack. We need voices like yours in this fight, so hit that subscribe button. Let me tell you about Judge Patrick Schiltz, because DHS tried to dismiss him as an activist judge, and it's one of the most absurd things I've ever seen. According to Wikipedia and Ballotpedia, Schiltz was appointed to the federal bench by George W. Bush in 2006. He clerked for Antonin Scalia twice, once when Scalia was on the D.C. Circuit, and again when he was on the Supreme Court. He's been the chief U.S. District Judge for Minnesota since July 2022. He's a Harvard Law graduate. He advocated for Robert Bork's appointment to the Supreme Court. And according to Yahoo News, at Notre Dame, Schiltz taught Amy Coney Barrett as a student and later recommended her for her own clerkship with Scalia. This is not an activist judge. This is a conservative legal movement insider. And according to a 2022 Minneapolis Star-Tribune article quoted by Yahoo News, when Schiltz became chief judge, he said, "My hope is to be the Benjamin Harrison of chief judges, one that no one remembers." He wanted to be invisible, a hidden guiding hand for a low-key courthouse. That changed when ICE started ignoring court orders. Let me tell you about the case that broke the judge. According to CBS News, Juan Hugo Tobay Robles came to the U.S. illegally in 1999 as a minor from Ecuador. He was detained in early January during Operation Metro Surge and placed at Fort Snelling, Minnesota. He challenged his detention in federal court. On January 14th, Judge Schiltz ordered ICE to give Tobay Robles a bond hearing within 7 days, or immediately release him. On January 23rd, Tobay Robles' lawyer notified the court that no hearing had been held and his client was still detained. Direct violation of a court order. And according to the judge, this was not isolated. It was one of dozens. So, on Monday, January 27th, Judge Schiltz issued a 3-page order, and according to MSNBC, it's remarkable both for the government lawlessness it calls out, and for how quickly that lawlessness has become routine in Donald Trump's second term. Here's what the judge wrote. This is one of dozens of court orders with which respondents have failed to comply in recent weeks. According to Common Dreams, the judge explained, "This court has been extremely patient with respondents, even though respondents decided to send thousands of agents to Minnesota to detain aliens without making any provision for dealing with the hundreds of habeas petitions and other lawsuits that were sure to result." The judge's frustration with ICE's lack of preparation was evident. From WBUR, the judge wrote, "Respondents have continually assured the court that they recognize their obligation to comply with court orders, and that they have taken steps to ensure that those orders will be honored going forward. Unfortunately, though, the violations continue." And then this line, "The court's patience is at an end." According to CBS News, Schiltz ordered Todd Lyons, acting director of ICE, to appear personally before the court and show cause why he should not be held in contempt of court. Lyons had to appear in person on Friday, January 31st at 1 p.m. in Minneapolis. He had to explain why he shouldn't be held in contempt. The court would only cancel the hearing if Tobay Robles was released before then. And, from WBUR, Schiltz wrote that he acknowledges ordering the head of a federal agency to appear in person is an extraordinary step. But the extent of ICE's violation of court orders is likewise extraordinary, and lesser measures have been tried and failed. Think about that. A federal judge is threatening to hold the acting director of ICE in contempt of court and ordering him to appear personally to explain why he's been ignoring court orders. Now, how did DHS respond to this?
Federal judge in Minnesota is threatening to hold the acting ICE director in contempt for ignoring court orders on immigration cases. What is that all about?
Yeah, so this is a federal case of a man who essentially is asking for due process, who was detained by federal agents, but who doesn't essentially feel like he got that due process in terms of bond hearings and in terms of getting essentially his day in court. And so the judge in this case is telling the head of ICE, you need to be here on Friday if you're not going to give this man his day in court, essentially. And the judge even saying this is a huge ask, and he understands that it is, but he also says that this is unprecedented, the way that things are going down here in Minnesota, guys.
According to CBS News, Tricia McLaughlin, Assistant Secretary at the Department of Homeland Security, slammed Schultz as another activist judge who is clearly more concerned about politics than the safety of the Minnesotans. She said, "Does this judge really think Director Lyons should take time out of his day leading ICE to target the worst of the worst criminal illegals, including murderers, rapists, pedophiles, and terrorists, into our country to testify at a hearing for one illegal alien's removal proceedings?" We said, "We will not let anything slow us down from removing criminal illegal aliens from our streets." Activist judge, that's what DHS called him. And CBS News noted in the same paragraph, Schultz clerked for the late Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia when he was a judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit, and again when he was appointed to the High Court. Reason magazine, a conservative libertarian publication, had some thoughts about this. According to Reason, my guess is that her statement elicited quite the snort of laughter from Schultz, who is not normally attacked for being some sort of far-left activist. Reason wrote, if anything, the 65-year-old Schultz, a George W. Bush appointee who currently serves as chief judge of the U.S. District Court for the District of Minnesota, is probably more used to being labeled as a right-winger. They continued, Schultz is, after all, a fellow traveler of the conservative legal movement who clerked twice for Antonin Scalia and later recommended Amy Coney Barrett, then one of Schultz's law students, for the same Scalia clerkship at the U.S. Supreme Court that Schultz himself previously held. So DHS called a Bush appointee who clerked for Scalia twice and recommended Amy Coney Barrett for her clerkship an activist judge. And then something interesting happened. On Tuesday, one day after the judge's order threatening contempt, Juan Tobe Robles was released. According to CNBC, Tobe Robles was released from custody in Texas on Tuesday, a day after Schultz scheduled the hearing. His lawyer, Graham Ohala Barber, said in a court filing that a supporter drove from Minnesota to Texas and is presently driving him back to Minnesota to reunite with his family and reestablish his interrupted medical care. From WBUR, Ojala Barber said his client's release has implications beyond his personal freedoms. He said, when the director of ICE is informed that he is personally responsible for answering for the legality of ICE actions, ICE pays attention and follows an order. Think about what this proves. ICE could have complied with the court order all along. They had the ability to release Tobe Robles. They just chose not to until a federal judge threatened to hold their director in contempt. The evidence shows this was not a logistical problem. And then on Wednesday, Judge Schultz released another order, and this one is devastating. According to CNBC, the judge wrote, ICE has likely violated more court orders in January 2026 than some federal agencies have violated in their entire existence. From CARE 11, in the order, Schultz provided a list of 96 court orders that he says were violated in 74 cases. CNBC reported, attached to this order is an appendix that identifies 96 court orders that ICE has violated in 74 cases. The extent of ICE's noncompliance is almost certainly substantially understated. And here's why it's likely understated. From CARE 11, the judge wrote, This list is confined to orders issued since January 1st, 2026, and the list was hurriedly compiled by extraordinarily busy judges. Undoubtedly, mistakes were made, and orders that should have appeared on this list were omitted. So 96 violations is the floor, not the ceiling. This was compiled quickly by busy judges. There are likely more violations that didn't make the list. All of this happened in less than 1 month. 96 violations, 74 separate cases, all since January 1st. And the judge attached the actual list as an appendix to his order. From Care 11, the judge wrote, "This list should give pause to anyone, no matter his or her political beliefs, who cares about the rule of law." According to CNBC, he wrote, "ICE has every right to challenge the orders of this court, but like any litigant, ICE must follow those orders unless and until they are overturned or vacated." And from Care 11, the court warns ICE that future noncompliance with court orders may result in future show cause orders requiring the personal appearances of lions or other government officials. ICE is not a law unto itself. The judge's warning that ICE is not above the law could not be clearer. Now let me tell you what these violations actually mean. According to CNBC, the cases in which Schultz accused ICE of failing to comply with judicial orders were all so-called habeas cases that challenged the legality of a person's detention. From CBS News, Schultz wrote that he has been extremely patient with administration officials, even though they sent thousands of agents to Minnesota to detain immigrants who came to the U.S. illegally without making any provision for dealing with the hundreds of habeas petitions and other lawsuits that were sure to result. And this has resulted in significant hardship to immigrants who have been arrested and detained as part of Operation Metro Surge, according to CBS. Here's the pattern. ICE sent thousands of agents to Minnesota. They made no provision for the legal process that would obviously follow. Hundreds of people filed habeas petitions challenging the legality of their detention. Judges issued orders to release people or give them bond hearings, and ICE ignored the orders. People who were ordered released remained detained. People who were ordered bond hearings never got them, all in violation of federal court orders. And this order comes in the context of everything else that's been happening in Minnesota. The fatal shooting of Alex Preddy on January 24th. The fatal shooting of Renee Good on January 7th. DHS blocking state investigators from crime scenes. Serious chain of custody failures with Preddy's gun. Nationwide protests. Conservative media turning on Trump. Republican senators demanding investigation. And now we know it's not just about the shootings. The lawlessness is systemic. ICE is operating as if courts don't exist. According to MSNBC, Schultz himself featured in other recent high-profile litigation in the state regarding the Trump administration's failed bid to arrest former CNN anchor Don Lemon and other individuals over their actions at a church service earlier this month. From CBS News, in a letter to the Eighth Circuit, Schultz said the Trump administration's efforts were unprecedented and said there is absolutely no emergency. So, this is a judge who has been watching this pattern develop, and he's documenting it. A Bush-appointed, Scalia-trained federal judge is saying that ICE has violated more court orders in 1 month than some agencies violate in their entire existence. That ICE is ignoring dozens of judicial orders. That people are being illegally detained despite court orders to release them. That this is extraordinary lawlessness, that the rule of law is at stake. And he has the receipts. 96 documented violations attached as an appendix. DHS's response proved the point. They called him an activist, a Bush appointee, a Scalia clerk, an activist. And then, when he threatened contempt, they immediately backed down and released the detainee within 24 hours. Proving they could have followed the law all along. They just chose not to until a judge threatened to jail their director. This isn't about immigration policy. This is about whether federal agencies have to follow the law at all. When a court orders you to release someone or give them a hearing, you don't get to just ignore that order because you don't feel like it. When a judge tells you to preserve evidence, you don't get to compromise its integrity. When state investigators have a search warrant, you don't get to block them from the crime scene. And when a federal judge compiles a list of 96 court orders you violated in 1 month and threatens to hold you in contempt, you don't get to call him an activist and pretend the law doesn't apply to you. The judge said ICE is not a law unto itself. And he's right. No agency is. Not ICE, not DHS, not the executive branch. Nobody is above the law. What makes this so damning is that it's not about one case. It's 96 violations, 74 separate cases, all documented, all in 1 month. And the judge himself says this list is almost certainly substantially understated. The pattern indicates this is systemic, and when threatened with consequences, they immediately back down. Let me know what you think in the comments. Does it surprise you that ICE violated 96 court orders in 1 month? What does it mean that DHS called a Bush-appointed Scalia clerk an activist judge? And do you think there will be real accountability? Share this video. People need to know that a conservative federal judge just documented 96 court order violations in 1 month and attached the list. They need to understand this isn't about one shooting or one incident. It's systemic lawlessness. We're building something here, a community that pays attention when judges document violations, that notices when agencies ignore the law, and that demands accountability even when it comes from conservative voices.
Thanks for spending a few minutes digging into this with me. If you want more grounded, progressive commentary without the outrage bait, subscribe and stick around. Every time you watch, share, and engage, it helps build a community that believes democracy is worth understanding and defending. I'll see you in the next video.